Hello, welcome. So this is week 3 of From Chaos to Connection, where we go through the weekly parsha and discuss how we can learn how to go from Taihu to Tikkun. And just to recap a little bit from the previous weeks, that the world was created originally in the state of Taihu, in the state of chaos, the state of disconnection. And as we go through our Veda, we come into a state of tikkun, which is a state of integration. So a taihu state is when we feel fragmented, when we feel disconnected. The world was created that each element, each part of creation seems like it's a separate entity. Each person seems like it's a separate entity. But as we do our Veda, we gradually all those different parts come together and come to a state of greater unity. And this is a transition called Taihu to Tikkun. So the first two parshas, Bereshis and Nayach, were really the world was more in a Taihu state. Start off after creation, we have the Chetzi Tzadas, then we have Cain and Hevel, then we have Hashem regretting creating the world. And the last week we have the Mabul. So in all these cases, we have like this disintegration of the world and of people and of society. So that's the Taihu state. And Lech Lecha really is the beginning of the Tikkun, because it starts off with Avraham Avinu, and Avraham Avinu is getting his mission from Hashem, Lech Lecha. And so we're going to discuss how this Lech Lecha, this command that Hashem gave Avraham, Lech Lecha, how that for the first time takes the world out of the state of Taihu and into Tikkun. And there's a Zayhar that says that the world was created with 2,000 years of Taihu, 2,000 years of Tikkun, and 2,000 years of Taihu, 2,000 years of Torah, and 2,000 years of Mashiach. So that's really the period that begins in Parshas Lech Lecha. So Parshas Lech Lecha is a very, very momentous parsha because we have, the whole, this is really our beginning. It's really the beginning of us as a people. It's really the beginning of, history, the way it plays out, in a constructive and a positive sense. We're leaving behind the destructiveness of the Dara Mabul, the Dara Flaga, and now we're entering into the state of Tikkun, and it all begins with Avraham Avinu. And the whole parsha is really the Veda of Avraham Avinu, his journey, going, first getting the command from Hashem, then going down to Mitzrayim, and then he has, the issues with light, and then he has, the Bris Bein Absarim, and then the promise of Hashem that he's going to have a child, and all of these represent, different journeys in Avraham Avinu's life, which also, these journeys also reflect on our journeys as a people. So I just want to kind of go into a little bit about what this command of Lech Lecha means and what it means for us on a personal level. So before, when we're in a state of Taihu, it's total fragmentation. Everybody feels disconnected from one another. Everybody feels like they're in an independent being. We're all just very, very much focused on ourselves and our needs. We're very much in our own space. I have, very self-focused. And because I'm very, very self-focused, I'm not really able to connect with other people. My whole mind is on my own life, my own needs, my own problems, and it's hard to really integrate with other people. That's the state of Taihu. The state of Tikkun is when we all recognize that we are all part of this creation. We are all creations of Hashem. Hashem created all of us with different midas, with different circumstances, different qualities. And the idea is that all of us need to integrate, all of us need to come together. So instead of having this feeling of I'm falling apart, I'm cracking up, I'm overwhelmed, I'm shattered, I'm broken, all these expressions that we use, express that concept of Taihu, that sense of disconnect. And when we come to Tikkun, when we realize, like, okay, I am part of this whole, and even the struggles that I'm going through, and whatever it is that I'm dealing with in my personal life, it's not just me on my own that I'm dealing with it, but I'm also being given the strengths that I need in order to deal with them. And also that I can draw strength from other people in order to deal with my individual situation. And I also can give strength to other people in their situation. So we are all individuals. We are all created as individuals, but we can all come together and share our different strengths, and each serve Hashem in our own independent way. And that's something that I mentioned last week, in relation to Nayach, that when he came out of the teva, the first thing that he did was planted a vineyard. He got drunk. And what was the idea behind that is he thought, like, okay, so the problem was that we're all in our own headspace. So let's, drink and let's be happy and let's get drunk. And then in that state, you feel like this, cosmic consciousness. I was just listening today about how, they're looking into using these psychedelics as treatments for depression. And when people use psychedelics, they get this sense of that they lose their own, their own boundaries, and they become part of this grand universal consciousness. But that's not the idea. The idea is not I should use some kind of intoxicant, something like alcohol or psychedelics, and get out of my consciousness in order that I can become part of this grand universal consciousness. The idea is to do that without being intoxicated. It means being fully within my kalim, fully within my brain, and fully sober, and within that to be able to recognize how we are all part of this one unified entity, and we have to serve Hashem within our limitations, within our boundaries. So that's why getting intoxicated is not the path towards unity, because it's not just let's lose all our boundaries, let's lose all divisions. It's from within our divisions, from within our individuality, let's serve Hashem the way we are and come together with other people as they are. So let's go into Lech Lecha. So let's keep in mind, first of all, that Hashem gave the command of Lech Lecha to Avraham Avinu. He was already 75 years old. So it's not like he was a young boy, and his life journey starts, at a young age. He was already a mature person. He was already a developed person. He was actually a very, very great person already when Hashem told him Lech Lecha. So what is the chiddush? Like, what was it? What was this big breakthrough that Hashem came to him and told him Lech Lecha? So all along, even though he was a very, very big tzaddik, a very, very righteous, developed human being intellectually and morally, and in every sense, he was already married to Sarah, and they were already, doing wonderful things. But he was still in that taihu state of being in his own space. Still, he was the great Avram, but Avram as an individual. And now Hashem is saying, okay, now we have to go beyond that. Yes, you were a great man, but now you're gonna leave behind like your personal agenda, even if it's a good agenda. You can still sorry. Even when it's a good agenda, even when we're trying to accomplish positive things, we're doing good things with our lives, it could still be from a sense of me and what I want and what my needs are. So that's the first step of Lech Lecha. Lech Lecha means getting out of your own headspace, getting out of your own agenda, even if it's a good agenda. I'm not doing things because of how it's going to reflect on me, or because I have personal goals that I want to accomplish. It's being able to let go of all of that, let go of all of my own desires. Lech Lecha me artzecha is ritzonos, my own desires, even if my desires are good, even if my desires are kedusha. I want to be a Talmid Chacham. I want to learn a lot of Torah. I want to have an open home. I want. I have a very beautiful image of what I want. These are all good things. So what's wrong? Why shouldn't I? If my ritzonos are good, why should I let go of them? So even when my ritzonos are for good, it's my desires. So that still holds me back from having those connections, that sense of all of us being part of the creation of Hashem. So that's lachach me'aretzecha m'leladlecha. The person can have a very naturally good, refined character. You could be a very fine person. You could have good midas, naturally good midas. So that's meladcha. Besavicha, your upbringing, how you were raised. Some people have to struggle to overcome certain things that they were raised with. Other people, they had a wonderful upbringing. They don't have to struggle against that. So why do we have to leave that behind? Because again, this is all like just me. This is just the way that I was born, the way I developed. This is all my personal thing. And now, in order to really go to my true reality, I have to leave all that behind. Lech lecha ela aretz v'sharaka. So lecha, as many Mefarshim explain, means go to your true self. Because that whole self, that whole, like my personal agenda, my personal desires, even when they're good desires, it's still not coming from the side of Kedusha. It's still not that tikkun, where I can let go of myself and get out of my own head. It could still be from very much within my own head and very much self-focused. So we're going to leave the self-focus behind. So that, and then lecha, when we let go of our self-focus, that's how I can truly grow and truly expand and become who I'm really meant to be. So it's kind of paradoxical that the only way I can get to my true self is by letting go of that sense of self. I have to let go of my self-interest, but really that is what raises me higher into a higher state. And when we're trying to let go, it feels very hard, even though I might understand, intellectually, that by letting go, I'm becoming part of something that's much bigger than myself. But it's still a scary feeling when I'm trying to let go of myself, when I'm trying to let go of my own agenda, when I'm trying to stop thinking about myself so much, stop thinking about what I want, what I need, start focusing more on the bigger picture. What does Hashem want from me? What does Hashem need from me? It feels very, very scary. But that's really the only way that we can become who we're really meant to be. So that's the lech lecha. Get out of your own headspace and then go to who you really are, lecha, to you. And it's ala aretz v'sharaka. So it's kind of open-ended, because when we, let go of ourselves and we're just saying, okay, I'm going to follow the path that Hashem wants for me, it's not like really clear. It's not really very defined. What is it that Hashem wants? What is it that I'm meant to do? It's kind of open-ended, and we are kind of going a little bit in the dark. And that's part of the Aveda. We don't have a clear destination. It's not like very, very clearly spelled out for us. We just have to take one step, another step, another step. Okay, so that's like the whole idea of Lech Lecha. This is where it begins, going from Taihu to Tikkun. This is really the beginning of it. And in the beginning, the first week, we talked about these concept of generational cycles, and there's generational positive cycles. There's also generational negative cycles. So here, if we want to think, like, where does these generational cycles begin from? Well, it really begins right here. It really begins right here in Parshas Lech Lecha. It's really like all spelled out, because Avraham Avinu, he is the first of the Avos, and every step that he took in his life was the beginning of a cycle that is continuing his children and his grandchildren all the way until this day. And that's why Hashem chose Avraham, because he taught his family, he taught his servants, he taught everyone he encountered to serve Hashem as Bincha. He transmitted this to us. He transmitted this power to be able to, go towards Hashem, towards the state of Tikkun. So I want to talk a little bit more now about what it means that, until now it was all Taihu, and now it begins the process of Tikkun. So back to that Zayar that says that the first 2,000 years was all Taihu, and then the next 2,000 years is Torah, and then the next 2,000 years is Emesa Mashiach. So why was there Taihu when the world was created? Because the world was created for the state of integration, but in order to integrate it, we have to have tools. We have to have a path. We have to have clear instructions for how to do this. So the first 2,000 years, the Torah was not given. So you had Adam and Chava sinning, you had the Itzadas, you had the 10 generations from Adam to Noach, and they were all sinful. And then, you had the Mabul, and you had the Daraflaga. And so all these generations, it's very much societal disintegration. There wasn't really a very cohesive society at that time. Now, from Avram, starts the process of preparing for Matan Torah. And it says about Torah, Nitna Torah Lasa Shalom Ba'ilam. The whole purpose of Torah is to bring peace into the world. Because the whole idea of unifying the spiritual with the physical only started with Matan Torah. Before Matan Torah, you could be a good person, you could be a fine person, you can serve Hashem, but it didn't really take hold in the physical world. So, for example, because of the others, they kept all the mitzvahs, and Yaakov Avinu, whatever he did with the makos, with the sticks that he held up in front of the sheep, had the same effect as tefillin, whatever spiritual effect it has. But afterwards, those makos were just plain sticks. They didn't have the holiness of tefillin. So the idea of taking physical objects and making them holy and making the world into a place that's holy only started after Matan Torah. And Avram, the Avos, started laying the groundwork to do that. Now, in order to lay that groundwork, they had to go through a lot of steps, and they had to go through a lot of different journeys just so we can get to the point of the Torah being ready to come down to the world. So this is really the beginning of what we call Avedas Habirurim. Avram Avinu, he was traveling, and in each step he had to go through specific challenges, because there were certain sparks of Kedusha in each place that he had to somehow elevate, and then his children, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they each had to go through different steps. So this is all the beginning, laying the groundwork for Matan Torah, laying that groundwork to bring the world to its state of perfection, so we can have that integration, that we can have that unity, that we can start to see in everything in creation what purpose it serves, what purpose I serve, what's my place. All these questions are answered through Torah. The more we learn Torah and align our lives and our values according to Torah, that's how we can, each of us in our individual, life circumstances, how we can all come together. The only way that we can really all come together, all these fragmented parts of the world, is only through Torah, through the path of Torah. We see this even in the world right now, that there's so many different, views about what's going on right now, what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, and how did this happen? Why is this happening? And only when we take a Torah approach do we really see a clear idea, why this is happening. So we just, we look at this week's Parsha, it's all, the Bris Bein Absarim. It's very clearly spelled out, Avram. Your children will be strangers in a land that's not theirs. And you have to go through this suffering for 400 years, and only afterwards will you come out, and then you will go into Eretz Yisrael. So the whole promise of Eretz Yisrael to Avram came with a certain amount of suffering. And it's very hard to understand why, and we see it, played out in history many times, that we had to suffer, we had to go through Galus, and we had to go through one stage of Galus, another stage of Galus. And every time we thought, okay, we're done, we're finished, we built a Beis HaMikdash. No, that wasn't good enough, we had to do it again. Why did we have to go through all these struggles? So as we are trying to go from the state of chaos to the state of integration, there's a lot of intermediate steps. And it's not always like, okay, we had this one big breakthrough, and now everything's going to be, peaceful and harmonious from now on. It's always like breakthrough and then falling apart again, and another breakthrough, and it seems stable for a while, and then another breakdown. And it's just like these constant cycles of breaking down, coming back together, breaking down again, coming back together. And in between, we have like these kind of equilibrium where it might seem like it's stable for a while. It might seem like it's calm for a while, and things fall apart again. And somehow, in the state when things fall apart, that's when we all come together. it's very ironic that just, a few weeks before all these horrible events, there was a lot of, protests in Eretz Yisrael, and there was a lot of division. And now all that division is like everybody, like Jews are discovering their Pintel Yid, and there's such an outpouring of love for each other, Ava and Achdus, and doing mitzvahs and lighting Shabbos candles and putting on tefillin and putting on tzitzis, and donating, and we're going to all give tzedakah and help in any way we can. So the chaotic situation all of a sudden is bringing out everybody's essential identity as a Yid. So why do we need those negative events? Why do we need everything to fall apart and then now we can come together? Because the ultimate revelation, the ultimate revelation of Mashiach is when everybody comes together, and we don't need those external negative events to bring us together. We come together of our own accord, that we all recognize it, and we don't need the negative. But it's also part of Torah, that's how it was set from the beginning, that it's going to come through this process. There's going to be struggle, there's going to be suffering, and didn't just happen once, but it happened many, 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 many times, that we had to go through these difficult situations and have like that breaking apart in order to come back together again. So that's all the progression from Tohu to Tikkun. And as we go through the history of the world and the history of the Jewish people, and going, became Eretz Yisrael, then they were exiled from there, and then slowly spreading out into the rest of the world. And this was all part of that process. Like, okay, so you brought the Kedusha in Eretz Yisrael, just that land, but now we're going to spread it out. We're going to go to Bavel, we're going to go to Paras, we're going to go to Greece, we're going to go to Rome. Finally it came to Fatzikat. We're going to come to America, the New World. It's all that gradual process of having to, bring that Tohu to Tikkun transformation in other parts of the world as well. And now we've already done all that. We've already been in all the countries of the world. So now the world is ready. And so what does it mean for us, on a personal note, on a personal level, when we're talking about the chaos and within our personal lives? So we have to remember that this is part of the promise Hashem gave to Avraham, that we know that this is a process. We know that Hashem gave strength to Avraham. It wasn't just that he gave him a command, but every time Hashem gives a command, he's also giving an asinas kayach. He's also investing within us the strength to be able to do that. So the same way Avraham was given the command lachacha, we're also being given the command lachacha. The same way Avraham was given the promise of Eretz Yisrael, we're given the promise of Eretz Yisrael. But the same way like he was warned that it's going to come with a certain amount of struggle, we have to fight for it. We have to fight for our land. And our land, there's the physical land and there's the spiritual land. Because the land, Eretz comes from Lashon of Ratzain, and that means that when we can make our Ratzain to be aligned with Hashem's Ratzain, that's our Aveda, to get out of our personal desires, our personal self-interest, and align ourselves, our will, our desire with Hashem's desire. So when Eretz Yisrael can really truly reflect that, when every Yid in Eretz Yisrael and every Yid around the world is able to embrace, what is it that Hashem wants for me, not what I want for myself, what I want for my life, and then I turn to Hashem and I say, you're not giving me what I want. But when I can really align my goals and my desires, my values with what Hashem wants, that's when we can really truly come to the land. Another thing I want to mention is the first thing that Hashem told Avram lachacha. So he went out of his land, and then there was a famine in Eretz Yisrael, and he left, and he went down to Mitzrayim. And according to Ramban, he said, why did Avram leave? If Hashem gave him a command to go to Eretz Yisrael, and then there was a hunger, he should have just waited until Hashem gave him further instructions. He was not supposed to leave. And then we had that whole incident with Sarah, and Sarah was taken, and then plague came on Beis Parai, and then she was released, and then the Parai gave them great presents. And all that foreshadowed the Yidden going down to Mitzrayim, and also they went out with Rechush Gadol. So the question is, if Avram was wrong, in whatever sense you want to say, but according to the Ramban, he was wrong, at least according to his daya. If he was wrong, if that initial step to go down to Mitzrayim was wrong, then how can it be like this is all in my Sevasim Labanim, it's all foreshadowing in our journey, in our life? I mean, he made a wrong step. He did something that he wasn't supposed to do. So the Rebbe explains that this is precisely why this story is told in the Torah, because there are many, many times in our lives where we feel like we made a wrong turn, we made a wrong move. And then anything that emerges after that was like, well, this was all my fault. This was all, I blundered. I went off the path. I went in the wrong direction. So I fell down. And now because I did it, I caused it. I was my own stupidity, my own bad choices that led me into the situation. So how can I say that this is all part of Hashem's process? How can I say this is all part of Hashem's plan? It was my fault. I did this. I have to somehow figure out a way. And if I can't figure out a way using my own keiches, I'm lost. Again, that taihu state, that brokenness, falling apart, cracking up. This was all caused by me. So that's why we have like the parsha, but we have this whole incident of going down to Mitzrayim to teach us even when we have those moments when we erred, we took the wrong turn, we took the wrong path, we draw kayach from Avram that we can also utilize those moments, even those parts of our journey that weren't so positive, we can lead ourselves back into a positive direction because Hashem is giving us that power, and we get that power from Avram, that it doesn't matter how we ended up in the situation, whether it was this one's fault, that one's fault, we could stop blaming each other. We could stop blaming ourselves. We could stop arguing. It was your fault and that one's fault. And if you hadn't done this and this wouldn't have happened. Hashem wants us to be in the situation right now for whatever reason. For whatever reason, we don't understand why. Hashem wants to be in the situation, and we also have the strength to be able to get out of the situation. Hashem can raise us up in one moment. It could all be transformed. So that's another lesson that we learned from Avram's journey. And back to like the concept of generational trauma, societal trauma. We have been going through generations of negative, generations of trauma because of the Galus, Mitzrayim, and all the other Galus that followed. But we also were given from Avram, and it's all spelled out clearly in the Parsha, we're all also given the power that no matter what our circumstances are, we can overcome them. So instead of focusing on the breaking of the cycle, what we want to get away from, we also want to focus on what is it that we want to build, what is it that we are transmitting to future generations, because we get, that is the power that we get from Avram. Too often we hear people talking about breaking the cycle, but we don't hear so much talk about, what cycles are we building? What are we conveying to future generations? What is it that we want to give over to them? It's not enough that we're just going to try to do things different, but what is it that we're passing along to them? And what we're passing along is all this great and wonderful powers that we got from Avram, from Yitzchak, from Yaakov, from all those generations of Yidden that sacrificed to maintain those values that we got from our others. That's what we are transmitting to our children. So we need to constantly think we're not breaking cycles. We are building up. Every generation is another opportunity to build that another cycle of lachacha, going out of your personal self-interest, going towards your true reality, your true character, who you are, which is that you are, have a mission from Hashem, which is to join with everyone else and all of us together to serve Hashem together. I want to pause now if anybody has any questions, comments, ideas or struggles, how we can internalize this how we can let go of our self-interest in this situation and try to find greater tikkun, support each other, help each other, protect each other, in order that all of us can get into that more of that tikkun state, to feel less broken, less fragmented, and more whole, more part of a greater unity. So I'd like to know if anyone has any thoughts to share. Yes, Rachel.
I've often thought that, tell me if you agree or you disagree, but I often thought it's easier for men to feel that because their expression of Yiddishkeit is communal. And as women, our expression of Yiddishkeit is in our home. So it is hard, even though our community is very good at connecting, and as we're doing now on Zoom, and we women get together and say to him, it's not the same thing. It's not built into our community life. It's not built into the cycle of the year that we come together as women. And so I think it's a challenge that is, on the one hand, unique to women. On the other hand, maybe it's easier because we excel generally interpersonally. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts on that is.
I love that insight, and it's something I've thought of often, but from the opposite perspective. I always felt that the reason that men are given those commands, like going to shul and having to get together and pray communally, and all these mitzvahs and all these external expressions of putting on tefillin and putting on a talis and all that, they need that because they have less of it internally, and therefore they need the external expression. They need to be commanded to get together, and whereas women, as you said, it comes more naturally to us. And like within a home, it's usually the woman who's the center and trying to hold the family together and nurturing her children. And I think this is my perspective, that it comes more naturally to us, and therefore we have less need for those external expressions. And even when we do feel like we have a need, I want to go to shul and I want to, learn Torah. And I personally feel very grateful to be born in this generation where the opportunities for women are much greater than they were in the past. The opportunities to learn and to daven. But it's still to a certain extent, it's voluntary. If I want to go to shul, I can go to shul. If I don't want to go, I don't have to. I don't have the obligation. So all these things, learning, I don't have the obligation to learn all the time, even though I can choose. I could choose how much I want to learn, even though there's many parts of Torah we are obligated. We have to know all the mitzvahs that we are obligated. We have to know all the halachos of Shabbos and kashrus and how to love Hashem and fear Hashem. So there's a lot that women are obligated to learn, but it's more for the knowledge rather than the mitzvah of learning Torah. And I think it comes from us not having as much of a need as you said. We're already more naturally inclined towards feeling less of ourselves. I always thought, like, if men weren't learning Torah all day and in shul and given all these obligations, they'd be out making trouble, because men, that's what they tend to do. I mean, historically, men, when they weren't kept busy, were making trouble. They were making wars. They were attacking other people. That's societies that were built by men, tend to have that, because it's very, each one has their own ego, and each one is very much in themselves and their own power and their own ego, whereas women are more evil. Also, I feel like I don't like to generalize too much, men, women, because then people say, well, I'm a woman and I want this, and I'm a man and I want that, and there's a lot of individual variations. But in a general sense, I think women not having those obligations comes from having less need for them. On the other hand, I'll also say, like you said, women are coming together. Women are, whether it's holidays or tehillim or shiurim or classes, and we're all finding our ways to get together with other people and to contribute in the ways that we feel are right for us in our circumstances in this time. And everybody has their own way of contributing. I mean, in our community, one woman organized the the challah bake, another woman organized the neshek, the ner Shabbos, and another one's doing a clothing drive. So everybody figures out their own skill set, and uses their skill set in a way that we can contribute to the war effort, whether it's on the physical front or the spiritual front. So we're all soldiers in this army. We just each have our own, own different mission, and we're given the tools and the weapons that we personally need to fulfill our individual mission. Does anyone else want to share? I mean, I've really been some of the Mushki, other people have been following. We actually started in the summer. We started from Tu B'Av, getting ready for Tishrei. And of course, we never really dreamed, how this was going to play out. So these concepts of, Tayu to Tikkun is something that I've actually been working on for a long time. I have, I have a weird background, but I have this book that I've been working on. It's called An End to Conflict. So it has a lot of these concepts. And sometimes you start on a project and then you don't realize, how it's going to become very, very relevant. So this whole process of, this Tayu to Tikkun transformation, that the Torah is given to make sense of all these different elements of creation, and bringing them all together, and unifying all of us. And that's, how it plays out, over the history. We all have an obligation, whether it's in my personal life, my family life, and my community life, to figure out, to go from that fragmented, very individualized or atomized state into a more integrated and more unified state. And so all of us are all working at our own levels. And it looks like, I look around the world and wow, I mean, this is like total chaos. And how can it be that my Aveda is actually making a difference? And that's really, throughout Jewish history, we've always had that question. We always could ask that. We were here, we were there, we never had security or safety for very long. It might have seemed like, this country was good for Jews and that country was good for Jews. And then things started, falling apart. And, oh, well, we're going to build our Yisrael, Zionism, the Zionistic dream. And that seems to be shaky at this moment. We don't know. The only real true answer is Mashiach. And Mashiach is really the end goal, is when we have completed our way from our end to elevate, perfect, refine the world in whatever way we can. But ultimately, we have to turn to Hashem and say, we have done what we could, because the original break, the original Tayu was not from us. The original Tayu was, even before the world was created, Hashem was the one that created the chaos. So the only one who could really end the chaos is Hashem. So we could say it's Hashem, and we have to say that to ourselves also. Like, we're each, rowing our boat and putting in our oars in whatever fashion, whatever way we need to. But we also have to understand that ultimately, Hashem is going to be the one that's going to make, that final move. We can say we're ready for Mashiach. We want to greet Mashiach. We want to see Mashiach revealed, and we want to see the whole world in its state of perfection. But at least this is my understanding, that we can only do what we can do, and ultimately we have to have, the Geula has to come from Hashem. Hashem has to, decide to turn over the world or set it right. That our Aveda, as human beings, we do everything that we can. We're setting up the world for Hashem. We're refining the world for Hashem. But Hashem has to be the one to finally, set it all the way it's supposed to be. Agree, disagree? Anybody else have thoughts they want to share?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, with the Israel stuff, it's clear that we're in it's just a mire, like that we're in a struggle where there's literally no human answer, because the attempts of peace have been made over and over again, and really only Hashem's intervention, can. But obviously, when it comes to Mashiach as well, Hashem's the one who's in charge of when it's the time. We're not. All we can do is hope and pray. So,
I mean, when you look at, what's going on, I mean, nothing really can undo, what was, the destruction that happened,
right.
one Shabbos. And I mean, it's not really clear to me what will happen in Gaza. Like, we relied on the armies to protect us. What happened, how it happened, we don't understand. I don't know. From human seichel right now, I don't see what the end game is. It's not something that we can understand humanly. I don't know if anybody has an answer right now. And I think it's really when the whole world is at that point, when we're all ready to say, listen, I don't have an answer. I just know, like, the way that we began the parsha, Eretz Hasharaka, like, Hashem, I'm just going, to the land that you're going to show me. And I think, even Eretz Yisrael, like, is that the land that Hashem is showing me? Like, the land as it is constructed now, whatever it is, the government, whatever, is that the true, like, land? Chassidus explains, like, there were 7 nations, and those correspond to the 7 midas. And when we refine our 7 midas, that's how we take possession of the land. And then there was 3 nations, Kenizi and Kameni, that were promised to Avraham, but we never took possession of them. There's debates who's Kenizi and Kameni, which lands they are. But it's according to Chassidus, those are the 3 intellectual powers. So the emotional powers we've already refined, but the intellectual powers we still haven't completely conquered, and that's going to be conquered in Moshe Mashiach. And that's why a lot of times we don't see the full picture. Things don't really make sense to us. I mean, I can do it out of the soul. I can work. I can do my Aveda, but I don't really see the whole picture. That's because we don't have control over those intellectual faculties. We're still very limited in what we can understand and how much of the picture we can see. Mashiach comes. We'll get those 10 lands, which includes the intellect, and then, we'll be more clear. But for now, all we know is, we just have to keep doing our Veda, trying to take the focus off ourselves, focus on other people, focus on, the needs of the Jewish people as a whole. And that's, our pathway towards the ultimate tikkun and geula. Okay, well, thank you. So Mushki asks, is that why Chabad has developed in the more recent generations to conquer intellect? So there's a lot of ways of understanding that. The Rebbe spoke about that many times, that the more we learn Torah, that's how we conquer the intellect, whether it's, Nigla, Gemara, Halacha, or whether it's Chassidus. When we learn Torah, we're aligning our brain and our mind towards Hashem. And especially, I think, in such a situation where there's so much confusion, if I would start thinking, my own brain and why is this happening and how's this happening, I think I would just start to fall apart. And the only way is by aligning, that this is the land that Hashem promised us. And just, trying to learn about Eretz Yisrael and, the halachos of Eretz Yisrael, and especially, when we're at war, physical war and spiritual war, we learn all those sources in Torah. That's how we're, fighting that battle, not just on the physical front, but on the spiritual front and the intellectual front, until hopefully, very soon, we'll see the complete revelation of Mashiach. And yes, our study, when we say, Mayach Shalat Alev, like our mind has to rule over our heart. So our mind, meaning, according to the teachings of Torah, when we align our thoughts with what the Torah says, what the Torah says we should do. And sometimes, when we feel like we're falling apart, we talked about that last week, going to the words of Torah and Tefillah, just finding those words, whether it's a pasuk in Tehillim or any pasuk or any concept of, Ma'amar Chazal, something that you hold on to, and just you hold on to, and that's what gives you sanity to get through, these really, really, really tough times. But I believe, just like Avraham was promised, we're going to go through the hardships, and then, we'll go out and we will enter into the land finally. So we should all be zeicha to see that in our lives and in our personal lives and our families and communities, and globally we should see that finally coming into the land, and true our true land. It should be revealed how it's the land of Hashem, and nobody in the world will doubt it, and we'll have complete safety, security, and peace. Thank you all so much for joining, and have a good night.
Thank you, Chaya, and Refuah Shlema.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry for all the disruptions.
No, it's just amazing still teaching, even though you're obviously.
Yeah, well, thank you, Rachel, and thank you for all your
Not yourself.
contributions.
So thank you.